So I know exactly where this started, but the whole 2 sets of everything, just training balls to the wall being this optimal kind of gold standard for hypertrophy, I think we kind of went like a complete 180 from, you know, back when I was a teenager training or doing like training programs from bodybuilding.com or whatever was in the magazines that they would send you. It was all like, you know, 4 or 5 sets. I remember even doing like German volume training, which we can all say is probably too much volume if we are training hard. And now it's kind of gone, again, full 180 where we're doing, you know, 2 sets to failure and everything. And I want to talk about where I kind of see the biggest mistake with this being prescribed. Before we dive into that, let's first just talk about understanding the relationship between volume and intensity. So to quote my friend Eric Rigera, in absence of intensity, there is volume. So basically, if we cannot train hard, there will be more volume. And if we are training very hard, there will be less volume. So if we are doing, you know, 5 by 20 on every exercise that we're doing in the gym, we inarguably are not going to be training with very high absolute loads, right? We cannot be training balls to the wall every set, or the amount of fatigue that we're going to accumulate will negatively impact performance, right? So if we are training balls to the wall, if we are going to a very close proximity to mechanical failure with a very precise execution, and we are doing 2 sets of an exercise, that's probably a great way to get jacked too. So just context there, not that the 2 sets and everything is bad, but I kind of see it being mass prescribed where we have these trainees who are like, again, novice to intermediate. And I think there's a whole conversation to have there as well, where usually trainees think that they're more advanced than they are. A lot of people are not dialed in to the extent they need to be dialed into with their execution to be doing 2 sets of everything. From the standpoint of getting better at training, right? Training is a skill. The better we are at training, the better we are at executing, the better we are at giving effort with good execution, probably the better results we're gonna get, whether that's a hypertrophy realm, aesthetics, performance, strength, whatever that is, that's probably a pretty good benchmark, right? So where we have this shortcoming, in my opinion, is we now have people, clients, trainees who are not as skilled as they should be to be doing 2 sets of an exercise. And now we're not giving them enough exposure to the exercise to get better, right? 2 sets is not enough volume in a day, not enough sets, nor across the week if we're only doing it once or maybe even twice, 4 sets across the week. I would rather get at least 3 sets of something that I want to practice, right? I'm practicing skill. I can still train hard, but I'm probably going to train to some sort of technical limitation, right? My form starts breaking down. I've identified some sort of qualitative metrics that I'm going to set as a benchmark. So for example, in my Romanian deadlift, I arch too much through my back, or my weight drifts back into my heels, or I lose relative positioning at the rib cage and pelvis, right? Something we'll set as a qualitative benchmark. When I hit that, as I get close to a failure point, that's where I'm gonna stop, right? Because I'm not gonna get any extra benefit from the stimulus that I'm gonna get past that point with poor form, but also I'm just practicing a bad skill, right? I'm practicing doing the form incorrect. So if I want to raise my ceiling for progress in the long run, I would like to have the highest skill possible. And this is not saying don't train hard. I think sometimes we get too dialed in with execution and it's like, oh, we're gonna do precision execution and train these fibers of our glutes or these fibers of our lats. No, dude, you just need to train hard. All that shit to the side, you need to learn how to train hard. So if we are even intermediate, 2 sets, probably not the move, especially we could break this down into exercises that are gonna be higher in skill, right? Higher in loadability. Those are probably gonna have, again, higher technical limitations. So we probably wanna have more volume with a little bit lower intensity. And when I say lower intensity, I don't know, 2 reps in the tank, 1 rep in the tank even. Whatever it is that we can train with high quality, let's just do an extra set, right? And if we're doing it twice a week, we're gonna get 2 extra sets. So we're gonna get essentially, what is that, 50% more volume. So instead of 2 sets twice a week, we do 3 sets twice a week. Cool, 6 sets now, right? So we basically get an extra session of that volume during the week. So if this is you, if you're having a hard time progressing, if you're having a hard time getting better at your execution, if maybe you have some sort of injury and you can't figure out why, and your program is all 2 sets, balls to the wall, maybe we take a step back and understand, okay, we can probably see just as good results by doing a 3rd set. Where I see this used the most is more bodybuilding coaches or in the hypertrophy realm where we are doing it. And again, it's not bad. It's a pretty good way of getting jacked if we're doing it right, but context needs to be applied here, and especially for the people that we're using it on. If we're novice, intermediate, probably not the play. Now, if we're doing bicep curls or calf raises or something that's single joint or even this lower skill like a leg press, right? We can probably start to apply this principle earlier in our training if we would like to. But if we're doing things like Romanian deadlifts, Bulgarian split squats, things that are much higher skill and much higher demand of internal stability, we're probably not going to be utilizing what we were really trying to get out of doing that 2 sets, because we're at a higher intensity, but our execution is going to be lower. So just had to get that off my chest. I've been seeing that a lot lately, and I've been seeing a lot of people struggling to see progress because they've been kind of jamming themselves into this mindset of, oh, you know, the move is just 2 sets with an absolute, with a balls to the wall relative intensity. So we don't have to do that. There's bodybuilders who are doing 5x20 and still are doing 5x20 and getting super jacked. And we could talk all the shit that we'd like to about high volume and the fatigue associated with that, this, that, and the other. But if we're getting mechanical tension, we're going to stimulate muscles, right? So it's all going to be on a spectrum. It's more so understanding, again, the inverse relationship between volume and intensity. If we can apply that to somebody, understand where they are from a skill standpoint, we can kind of tailor that to them and then adjust based off recovery. So if we can recover, we can probably do more. If we can't, we can probably get away with doing less, right? So put all those things into context. Hopefully this helps. If you have any more questions, please drop them below. I'll cover in the next video. Other than that, I appreciate you guys sticking around, and talk soon.